Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to look at pin washing and how to use oils. We're going to try and kill two birds with one stone. We're going to do the Centurion. So oils are a bit different to shades. So first of all, you need to matte varnish your model, which just breaks the surface tension and helps the oils flow a bit better. You don't have to, but because you're going to be using a solvent to carry your oil, you can use alcohol or you can use thinner. I tend to use this, which is artist thinner. It's just very gentle on paint. You need your colors, obviously. So again, don't get shit oil paints. Pay for decent ones. I use Winsor & Newton, and we're gonna go for burnt umber and lamp black. They're really cheap. They last for ages. Get a palette. Cover your palette in tinfoil so the oils don't stain it. You need some cardboard to put your oil paint on before you transfer it into the palette, and a shit brush. This is a Dowler Rowney Golden Taklon brush. I think I bought about 8 for, I don't know, like £8 or something. But it's really good just to have brushes lying about that you can just tan, basically. So anyway, we're going to get going now. We're going to put some thinner into the palette, which is there now. This is why you need the cardboard, so you need something to accept or hold the oil paint, because obviously you're going to mix it to get that wash, or, well, yeah, I suppose it is a wash, for want of a better word. So there we go. Brown and black, basically. That's literally it. I've got 3 wells with thinner in, 1 for each colour, or a mix of colours, and then 1 to clean your brush once you've done the mixing, basically. So get your brush a little bit wet with some thinner on it, take your oil paint, and that's literally it. Just mix it around, keep mixing it. It might take a wee while to dissolve. I mean, you can use, like I said, you can use alcohol for this, but it'll take ages to dissolve, basically. So, save yourself the hassle, spend the £8 on some decent thinner. And I always like to put a little bit of brown in with the lamp black to make it a bit less kind of dense, I suppose, of a colour. I find that just lamp black on its own is sometimes a bit much. So you can see the brush is dirty, and that's why you have the third well that's just got thinner in it, which is purely just for cleaning your brush off, basically. That's all. You don't use it for anything else. Just get that brush as clean as you can get it. I have a jar of IPA behind me there that I do a final rinse in, which I usually sit my airbrush in as well. Always handy to have it. Or IPA and water, a mix like that, that'll do it. But anyway, so we're ready to start. So here we go. Basically what we're going to do is, because the model is covered in varnish, the surface tension of that model's now broken. So we're going to use the lamp black to just basically pick out all the recesses. So we'll start on the head. The camera was struggling to focus a little bit here because of the bright silver of the tinfoil. But there you go. So this is very different to using normal washes. You literally just touch, and because there's no surface tension or very little, the oil will flow. So you'll see there how you just touch it, and if you get a bit that's got good coverage of varnish, it'll just flow. Do not worry about the oil spilling out onto different areas of the model, because at the very end of this process we're going to come back and do a bit of cleanup, which is perfectly normal when you're using oil paints. It's just part and parcel of it. So for me, I'm using this lamp black and burnt umber mix to go over all the exposed metal and to basically give it a recess wash, or a pin wash. I mean, this is a true pin wash, where you're literally just adding a black line or a dark line. And there's me catching the little studs there. You can see how much the oil spreads out. The first time you do this, you might get a bit worried because it does look really messy. But believe me, it's well worth it. The amount of tone you add. And it's very controlled compared to a standard shade or an ink. It doesn't look it just now, but the end result is much nicer. You get much more depth. The only thing you'd have to do at the end is, once it's dry, which it'll take about a week to dry, fully. Just varnish it again, a light coat of varnish, and be able to paint over it. And here you can see the benefit, these little recesses on the leg, where you just have to touch and the oil just flows. So it's really quick to get a very, very good kind of precise, I suppose for want of a better word, recess wash, rather than, you know, using washes from DW or anyone else. I wouldn't advise doing this in all your models because, you know, it's quite an involved process. There's lots of extra steps, but certainly for characters, it's well worth it. And like I said, don't worry about it. You'll see it there. The oil spreads out over the leg. Don't worry about it, because most of that kind of most of the color is going to be caught in the recess. And like I said, you come back and you clean it up. So basically, once you finish this process, you wait between 2 and 3 hours, depending on how warm your room is, and you come back with a Q-tip or something like that, and you can remove the excess oil that you don't want. So you can almost start the highlighting process then, because, you know, things like the studs on the ankles, they're completely covered in oil at the moment. So when you come back, you can just wipe the top of it and you've got an instant highlight, because it's dark and then, you know, bright. So we're just going to catch the rest of the obvious metallics here, leaving a bit of the kind of blue glow from the hammer on the metal, to get it there. And like every technique, you know, when I started doing this, I was, you know, it took me a lot longer, because I would try and be very, very neat and tidy, and then I soon realized that you don't need to be, because you can come back and you can mop it up, with a Q-tip. And oftentimes where the oil spills out over onto a flat surface or something, it's so diffuse that it almost just adds like a weathering tone. So it's up to you whether you want to go around and remove all of it with a Q-tip, all the excess, or leave some, or whatever you want to do, just do it. But give this technique a try. I think you'll be really surprised. So that's it. That's the metallic parts and the pin wash complete. So now that's my other well, I'm just mixing up some burnt umber here. And you can see what I mean. You still got lumps of the oil paint, but just give it a good mix until it's all dissolved. And I think we're getting there now. But that would literally take about 3 times as long with alcohol, so just buy some thinners. So with the burnt umber, we're going to do the shields, we're going to do the gold, all the gold areas. We might pick a few more highlights, like here on the chest, on the kind of dragon skin, just to add some depth before we go in and finish that off. And along the kind of brown shaft of the weapon, and we'll catch that tubing power coupling. I didn't film, well, I filmed the shield guys, but it didn't turn out very well. But you'll see the finished article. And now we're going to catch these pauldrons. And just look at the depth that oil adds to that gold. It's no longer just a kind of wet blended gold. It's got a lot more tone. It almost looks patinaed, like it's been out in the weather. And that really is the beauty of oil paints. And then doing areas like these greaves, you know, it's so easy. You just touch them like that, and it just flows around them. I just love this technique so much. It's just so much better than shades. If you've got like tons of time, we'll catch these pipes on the back as well, but because it's still wet, the camera was struggling to find something to focus on. But I just love this technique so much. There's more going on this side, because remember, this is the side of the model that's in shadow from our light source, so it's going to look a bit darker. But yeah, I love oils. I just think they add so much to a model. If I had the time, I would do this to all my miniatures, but the thought of doing this to kind of every rank and file guy you've got, oh, I shudder to think, basically, how you'd feel at the end of it. But I mean, if you've got the time, go for it, because it looks phenomenal once it's done. So I think we're getting there. Yeah, that's about there, I think. It's still quite wet, so the camera's kind of struggling. When you're doing this with colors like burnt umber and lamp black, don't get worried about them kind of running into each other a little bit. That's not really a big deal. It's very different to what you would call a standard kind of wash, if you will. There's a mistake. If some of you might have noticed it on his arm, a little spot of black. We'll just turn that into some battle damage. That's nothing to worry about. So here we go. So he's been drying for, I think at this point it was about 2.5 hours. It's still a little bit wet, but I had things to do. So this is it. You get your Q-tip and you just start removing where you don't want it. So yeah, I want that to be brighter, so I'm going to take some off there. And similarly here, I'm going to dab away there. There's a bit too much darkness, there's a bit too much shade there. I'm just going to pull it away with the Q-tip. And it just comes off because it's not fully dry. And there, that's what I'm saying about cleanup. His arm, the greaves looked quite wet before, whereas you can just go in and dab it off. You literally just dab it off. And then it just looks like sort of grime, if you like. And similarly in the head, it's a bit dark in places. You can just take your time, go around, remove a little bit. I just want to dab some off here. I don't want to remove a lot from that. I want to leave a bit of tone on the dragon skin. And similarly here, I don't want to remove too much. Just try and grab some from the tops of the studs, just so the silver stands out a bit more. And you just work your way. And there, that's what you're left. That's what comes off. Oil comes off of it. And you just work your way around the model, guys, removing it where you want. And this is the finished article. I think it looks great. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I think it adds so much depth and interest to what was already an interesting model. But I hope you liked the video, guys. Try my best to keep the content fresh. If you want to see more of this, check me out on Patreon at Grimdark. Enjoy. I hope this helps you. Bye for now.